In today's video, we'll look at why playing nice often backfires when strategic ruthlessness actually protects you, and how Machiavelli's darkest power lessons, appearance, fear, necessary cruelty, and cunning work in real life. This isn't about mindless aggression. It's about clear-eyed strategy, timing, and control. Power begins at the surface. Before anyone knows your competence, your plans, or your private principles, they register what you look like you stand for. That's why the first rule is simple and hard. Cultivate a mask of virtue so reliable that people stop inspecting it. You're not lying about your character. You are managing your optics so your decisions can be made without endless friction. In a world that rewards quick judgments, the person who appears principled gets the time and room to act pragmatically. Reputation buys you the benefit of the doubt, and the benefit of the doubt buys you power. Start by separating your stage from your workshop. On the stage, meetings, emails, others will forward, public channels, speak the language of ideals, fairness, transparency, service, responsibility. In the workshop, small rooms, trusted confidants, personal notes, deal with constraints and trade-offs without apology. The stage protects the workshop feeds the stage with results. Confusing the two is how people get branded hypocrites. Keep your values in public, your analysis in private, and your decisions precise. Build your fortress of reputation deliberately. Think of it as a ledger with deposits and withdrawals. Deposits are visible acts that align you with shared values. Finishing on time, crediting your team publicly, deferring praise to mentors, taking a small loss to honor a promise. Withdrawals are the necessary hard moves, cancelling a project, replacing an underperformer, shutting down a popular but wasteful perk. The rule is to overfund your ledger long before you need to draw from it. 3 consistent deposits matter more than 30 loud promises. Reliability is reputation's compound interest. Craft your first impression as if it will never be updated, because for most people, it won't be. Have a clean origin story you can tell in one breath. Who you serve, what you value, and how you decide. Keep it boringly consistent. When you enter a new room, your first 3 public actions should be unimpeachable. Share credit, acknowledge past work, ask a disarming practical question that signals you care about outcomes over ego. People are actively searching for shortcuts. Hand them one that says, "This person is principled and competent." They will cling to it, even when later evidence complicates the picture. Guard your name with procedural armor. Make it normal that significant decisions flow through frameworks, written criteria, thresholds, timelines. When you must cut, you cut by the criteria. When you must approve, you approve by the same. This replaces "I did it" with "the process required it," which sounds virtuous and feels fair. Processes are not cages, they are shields. The point is not to avoid responsibility, but to make your responsibility look like stewardship rather than appetite. Speak in a tone that preemptively cools suspicion. Use phrases that combine moral concern with firm action. Responsible pace, duty to outcomes, respect for constraints. Why this helps the whole? We owe people clarity. When rejecting a proposal, do not attack the person, isolate the variable. The idea is compelling, the timing and cost profile are not. When accepting, distribute honor. This only works because of X's groundwork. Virtue is performed in grammar long before it's measured in metrics. Stage generosity in public, precision in private. Share credit broadly, hoard blame narrowly, but never theatrically. If you take blame loudly, people hear the performance. If you take it simply and fix the problem, they register maturity. When you reward, do it where others can see. When you discipline, do it once, clearly, and away from the crowd. Visible generosity makes your later firmness feel proportionate rather than predatory. Curate allies who can vouch for your character without being prompted. This is not the same as building a fan club. You want quiet validators, people with status in different circles who will say, when your name comes up, they're tough, but they're fair. They keep their word. You might not like the answer, but it'll be honest. These sentences are gold. They travel further than any speech you deliver yourself. Earn them with small repeated signals, returning calls quickly, closing loops, refusing to gossip, paying debts on time, being the same person on Tuesday morning that you are on Friday evening. Control your own narrative by lowering the informational noise. Talk less than you're tempted to. The person who explains too much looks defensive, and the person who jokes too freely looks careless. Keep your public statements short, forward-looking, and testable. What will happen, by when, and how you'll know. Avoid negative promises. Will never. Prefer positive commitments with measurable gates. Will proceed if criteria A, B, C are met. Ambiguity helps the fox, but sloppy ambiguity feeds rumor. Be exact where proof matters and silent where speculation thrives. Use symbols. Appearances are not only verbal, they're ritual. Show up early and leave last once a week, not daily. Ritual loses power when it becomes background. Wear the same small signal in high-stakes moments. A notebook, a pin, a phrase. People attach meaning to repetition, and meaning is a shield. When you need to make a hard call, surround it with visible fairness. Solicit a counter-argument in the meeting. Include someone neutral on the review. Publish a 2-paragraph rationale. The act becomes part of a larger story. This is how you do things. Anticipate reputational threats like you'd anticipate weather. Map the most likely attacks. Cold, calculating, self-interested, secretive. Pre-inoculate with small, authentic counters. If they'll say you're cold, schedule routine one-on-ones that are genuinely about the other person's roadblocks. If they'll say you're calculating, occasionally choose a visible suboptimal move for a human reason, honoring a long-standing promise, funding a team's closure properly. These are not staged acts, they're disciplined choices that deny easy labels. You don't fight rumor with PR, you starve it with pattern. Create cutouts for necessary force. Use committees, role definitions, and time-boxed trials to absorb shock. Instead of you personally rejecting someone, let the pilot's results reject it. Instead of you personally firing, let clear performance thresholds trigger it. You are still accountable, but the story told about you is they uphold the standard, not they attack people. Push decision power down where it's safe and pull it up only when it's decisive. The mask of virtue is also a map of delegated edges. Control the tempo. Appearances decay when you move either too fast to look reckless or too slow to look weak. Set a cadence everyone can predict. Weekly updates, monthly reviews, quarterly resets. When crises hit, accelerate the cadence temporarily and then visibly return to normal. Rhythm reassures people that values still govern events. The ruthless move delivered on beat looks like discipline. The same move delivered off-beat looks like panic. Use contrast to your advantage. Align yourself publicly with something unquestionably good. Customer safety, craftsmanship, truthful data, dignity at work. Then frame difficult decisions as trade-offs within that good. We're cutting this feature to preserve security. We're slowing hiring to keep our promises to current employees. The contrast lets onlookers attach your sharp edges to a core virtue. People accept pain better when they can name the value it protects. Never boast about your virtue. Let others notice it. If you must point to it, attribute it to the standards you follow or the mentors who shaped you. Bragging cheapens the mask and invites tests you don't need. Your language should remain understated even when your moves are decisive. Think clean lines, not neon signs. In negotiation, place the mask first, the blade second. Start by framing shared principles and clarifying non-negotiables that sound like duties, not desires. We have to protect data. We have to keep the team small enough to stay excellent. We have to pay on time, then trade within those boundaries. People will forgive your firmness when it guards something they've been taught to admire. Mind the small optics that compound into myth. Who you sit beside, whose messages you answer fastest, what you laugh at, what you ignore, these become shorthand for your character. Curate them, reply to juniors quickly. Laugh at yourself, not at anyone's absence. Read before meetings. Carry consequences for your own mistakes into the room without dramatizing them. The mask is woven from hundreds of tiny threads. Handle criticism with asymmetrical calm. Correct factual errors precisely and once. Let unfair shots pass without public retaliation. Have private conversations only when they'll change behavior. When you must push back, quote your own standard rather than attacking motive. We said we'd decide by data. Here's the data. The appearance of virtue is strongest when it looks like quiet fidelity to a rule, not a duel. Keep your private circles small and dull. The greater the ambition, the tighter the seal needs to be between your workshop and the audience. Choose confidants who prize outcomes over gossip and who won't need to advertise proximity to you. If a confidant treats access as status, remove them. Leaks are not only information problems, they're moral optics problems. The rumor that you have a secret knife is less damaging than proof that you can't keep your own counsel. Practice exit hygiene. When you end a relationship, hire, vendor, ally, end it in a way that leaves the other party able to speak well of you later. Clear reasons, adequate notice, dignified terms, no public humiliation. Your enemies will have microphones you can't control. You can still shape the tone of what they say. A reputation for clean exits makes your future entries easier. Finally, remember that playing nice is not the same as being seen as fair. Niceness invites expectations. Fairness invites respect. Your mask is not sweetness, it is steadiness. People come to rely on your predictability, your proportion, your refusal to make others bleed just to prove a point. Then, when you do act with sharpness, the room reads it as necessary rather than gratuitous. That is the leverage appearances give you. The freedom to be exacting without being branded a villain. The space to be ruthless when it's time without looking like you enjoy it. Power asks a simple question. When you speak, do people reorganize themselves? If not, the issue is not usually logic or charisma. It's your calculus of consequences. People move toward benefits and away from pain. Love is voluntary alignment born of goodwill and shared gains. Fear is disciplined alignment born of predictable consequences. If forced to pick, it is safer to anchor your system in fear, never hatred, and supplement it with love. The difference between fear and hatred is precision. Fear is about rules. Hatred is about you. Begin by defining the boundary where your authority lives. Without borders, there's nothing to defend, and without defense, words are weather. Write down what is non-negotiable in 1 page or less. Deadlines, quality bars, confidentiality, safety, fiscal hygiene, whatever your world requires. Share it in plain language and repeat it until you're tired of hearing yourself. Then attach visible stakes. If X is missed, Y happens. The goal is to make the cost of defection obvious and impersonal. When consequences are predictable, fear feels like gravity, ever-present, rarely discussed, quietly respected. Make consequences proportionate, front-loaded, and finite. The worst way to enforce is with recurring small punishments that never end. People habituate to pain, grow resentful, and start organizing against you. The best way is a single clean action that resets norms, followed by normalcy. If someone violates the core, you respond once, decisively by the book, and then you stop talking about it. A closed loop is easier to forgive than a lingering sting. Use a ladder of enforcement so people can self-correct before they crash. Step 1. A private, factual note. What happened? What standard applies? What must change? Step 2. A documented checkpoint with a date and a clear metric. Step 3. The consequence you pre-declared, executed without drama. Step 4, if necessary. Exit, handled with dignity. This ladder is not gentle for its own sake. It's efficient. It filters the merely sloppy from the actively defiant and proves to onlookers that you are fair even when you're firm. Engineer the incentives so that loyalty carries loss if abandoned. People guard what they stand to lose. Tie benefits, access, prime assignments, profit share, prestige projects to visible behavior, not personality. Publish the criteria that earn those benefits. On-time delivery streaks unlock X. Cross-team mentorship unlocks Y. When someone violates standards, remove benefits quietly and immediately. When someone exceeds standards, add benefits publicly and immediately. Public reward creates love. Private consequence builds fear without spectacle. Never threaten. Threats are admissions that your system doesn't enforce itself. Announce standards and let the clock do the talking. If you find yourself saying, this better not happen again. You've already drifted into negotiation. Replace threats with triggers. When the error rate exceeds 2% in a week, the release freezes until the next audit. No raised voice, no adjectives, just cause and effect. People trust physics more than speeches. Design no-hate architecture into your rule set. Hatred grows from humiliation, arbitrariness, and hypocrisy. Eliminate public shaming, correct behavior in private and praise in public. Remove randomness by setting decisions on pre-published metrics. Kill hypocrisy by binding yourself to the same constraints. Arrive on time, document decisions, take your own medicine when you miss. When people see that the blade cuts everyone the same way, they may fear it, but they won't hate the hand that holds it. Keep fear predictable, but rare. If every conversation carries implied danger, people stop speaking truth and start gaming optics. Reserve the edge for core violations. Everywhere else, use calm pressure. Deadlines, dashboards, comparisons to the standard. The right cadence is visible firmness once, then long stretches of uneventful work. Quiet, routine progress is the music that makes the drumbeat credible. Combine consequence with exits and returns. Give people a way to redeem themselves. Time-boxed plans, skill reassignments, probation with clear win conditions. Fear without a path back creates despair. Despair breeds sabotage. When someone returns from the edge by meeting the bar, publicize the performance, not the punishment. You're rewarding order restored, not celebrating failure forgiven. Calibrate tone precisely. You want respectful caution, not dread. Dread makes people hide and hoard. Caution makes them prepare and perform. In practice, be brief, be specific, stay cool. Replace "I'm disappointed," which invites theatre, with "We missed the SLA, here's the trigger, here's the reset." Emotion invites counter-emotion. Facts pin the conversation to ground. Build a self-policing culture by distributing ownership. If only you enforce, you must always be present. Instead, let teams feel the costs of their own decisions. Give them budgets, deadlines, and post-mortems that travel with their name. Peer pressure, once attached to clear standards, becomes the most efficient fear. There is nothing quite like the dread of letting down competent colleagues who keep score. To keep this from turning toxic, forbid ad hominem attacks and require written blameless analyses that fix systems, not people. Broadcast what is rewarded so love isn't mysterious. Love that rests on personality is fickle. Love that rests on outcomes is stable. Spotlight the work, the clean design, the measured rollout, the difficult client turned ally, the safety near miss avoided. Tie praise to specifics. People fall in love with standards they can hit. They resent standards that seem like moving targets or private preferences. Use timing to magnify lessons. Early in a tenure or initiative, a single crisp enforcement sets the perimeter for years. Do it on a case that is clear, documented, and widely understood to be offside. Later, shift into maintenance mode. Fewer big actions, more nudges. In crisis, compress the cycle. Faster checks, faster consequences, faster resets. When stability returns, deliberately slow the tempo to signal that fear is a tool, not a lifestyle. Operate with clean language that divides the person from the behavior. This decision violated the cost cap, not "you're reckless." We committed to data before claims, not "you spin." Clean language reduces humiliation. Again, fear not hatred. When someone improves, update your language to match reality. Do not brand people with their worst moment. Be explicit about non-negotiables versus preferences. The more you put into preference, the more space you have to be generous. The more you put into non-negotiable, the more you must be ready to enforce. Keep the non-negotiable list short and sacred. If you declare everything sacred, nothing is. Guard against favoritism. People will forgive severity they perceive as consistent. They will not forgive double standards. Make exception processes transparent, reasoned, and rare. Document why a deviation served a higher standard, safety, solvency, existential risk, and sunset the exception by default. When exceptions linger, resentment metastasizes. Plan for betrayal as a category, not an event. Decide beforehand which betrayals are survivable, leaks of low-stakes info, missed deadlines with notice, and which are terminal, safety violations, fraud, deliberate sabotage. When the terminal case happens, act in hours, not weeks, and anchor the action in your published line. Do not litigate character in public. Narrate the rule and the evidence that it was broken, then move on. The swiftness teaches, the silence prevents soap opera. Create status that encodes your values. Titles are blunt, tokens can be sharp. A visible ring of trusted reviewers, a rotating keeper of the standard, a quarterly clean hands commendation for those who face hard trade-offs without shortcuts. People chase status even more than money. If the path to status runs through your rules, you won't have to argue for them. Watch the early warning lights for hatred, joking cynicism around your name, increase in passive-aggressive compliance, silence in meetings, rising variance in performance and morale between teams, a private Slack channel that becomes a gravity well. When you detect these, assume a wound you caused or failed to close. Do 3 things fast. Tighten the standard, remove ambiguity, close a lingering accountability loop, demonstrate the blade still works, and make a visible, non-performative investment in the group, time, tools, burden removal, that is proportional to recent pain. People don't hate who holds them to a bar. They hate who extracts endlessly. In negotiation, pair steady give with certain take. Offer obvious near-term benefits for alignment, budget, headcount, spotlight, autonomy, while making the cost of non-alignment mechanistic. If we miss X, the plan automatically reverts to Y. This is the spine of credible fear. Your action does not depend on your mood. It depends on a switch everyone can see flipping. Keep record-keeping immaculate. Memory is political. Records are structural. Summaries of decisions, criteria used, options considered, responses to objections, these are your receipts. When someone challenges your fairness, you don't argue, you produce the thread. Good records also prevent the slow creep of exceptions that mutate into precedent without consent. Mind your presence. If you appear only to punish, your shadow becomes synonymous with dread. Walk the floor when nothing is on fire. Ask specific non-gotcha questions about the work. Show up to pre-mortems and learnings, not only to reviews and cuts. When people see you in creation as well as correction, fear of you becomes respect for the office you hold, which is precisely what you want. Never outsource the first enforcement of a core rule. Delegation is efficient, abdication is costly. Let lieutenants handle routine discipline, but when a foundational standard is at stake, you must be the one who speaks and signs. Authority exercised at the right moments increases trust. Authority withheld when it matters dissolves it. Protect your signal economy. If you smile through a miss and snarl through a win, you scramble incentives. Keep your facial expressions, meeting demeanor, and written tone aligned with reality. Serious when the bar is missed, generous when it's met, curious in uncertainty. People tune their effort to your signals, send clear ones. Finally, anchor love to the future and fear to the present. Provide immediate, tangible rewards for alignment now, recognition, resources, clean scope, and reserve fear for consequences that trigger promptly when the line is crossed. Deferred rewards teach hope. Deferred punishments teach gambling. You want hope to compound and gambling to die. When people believe good behavior will be noticed this week and violations will matter this week, the calculus resolves. Respect the rules, enjoy the gains, avoid the pain. They don't have to love you to love that arrangement. They just have to believe it won't change with your mood. And that belief, earned through consistency, is what makes your voice enough to move the room. Cruelty is a loaded word. Use a stricter definition. The smallest, sharpest harm necessary to restore order and protect a higher value. The point is never pain for its own sake. The point is to prevent 1,000 cuts by delivering one clearly explained incision and then saturating the environment with benefits, stability, and proof that the system is better. People can metabolize a single shock if it is justified and finite. They cannot survive endless uncertainty. Front-load the pain because anticipation corrodes faster than impact. The mind inflates what it cannot measure. When change drags on, rumor fills the gaps, morale sinks, and your authority becomes a weather pattern no one can plan around. A concentrated strike ends speculation, establishes new ground truth, and frees attention for building. In behavioral terms, you minimize total suffering by delivering a high, brief spike rather than a long, low drizzle. In political terms, you avoid the cycle of backlash that comes from repeated takings. Begin with a necessity test. Is a harsh act the least cruelty consistent with order? Ask 4 questions. 1. Is there a direct line from this action to preserving something sacred, safety, solvency, dignity, truth? 2. Have incremental fixes already failed or produced perverse incentives? 3. Can you describe the standard you're protecting in one sentence a skeptic would respect? 4. Will the pain be finite, and will the gains be tangible within 30 to 90 days? If you cannot answer yes to all 4, you are not ready, or you are rationalizing. Prepare like a surgeon. Make an impact map that lists who is affected, how much, and what you owe them. Draft the rule you are enforcing and gather receipts, metrics, prior warnings, written criteria, cost and risk analysis. Line up legal/ethical guardrails. Harshness without compliance is not strength, it's fragility. Pre-write the communications in 3 layers, a short statement for everyone, a detailed FAQ for those closest to the change, and private scripts for managers who must carry it out. Schedule a single window, often one morning, for execution. Schedule the first benefit drops within a week. The choreography matters as much as the content. When you act, do it cleanly and all at once. If you must shut down a product, shut it down. Don't announce a temporary pause that lingers for quarters. If you must reduce headcount, complete it in one pass. The moment you say, more may be coming, you've multiplied the pain and invited your best people to self-evict. If you must revoke privileges, revoke them systemically rather than user by user over months. The worst optics are a leader who cuts in slow motion. Explain the decision like a physicist, not a poet. 3 paragraphs, no adjectives. What is changing? Facts. Why it's necessary? Standard being protected. How you will cushion and invest? Near-term benefits. And exactly when normal cadence resumes? Dates. Remove drama. People can process bad news when they can see the edges. They resent bad news wrapped in sentiment because it confuses the ledger. Are we grieving or deciding? Publicly, give reasons and outline the path forward. Privately, offer dignity and options. In one-on-ones with those harmed, be specific about the standard, name any contributions you valued, and provide real help. Severance, references, bridges to teams where they can win, time-boxed trials or reassignments with clear success criteria. Do not bargain with the rule, do support the person. Mercy after the cut reinforces that you are not acting from appetite. Avoid lacerations by 1,000 policy tweaks. Salami slicing budgets, perks, or autonomy every few weeks feels like harassment. Better to remove an entire category once and then build a new compact. This is gone. Here is what will replace it. Here is when you will feel the upside. People can grieve and reattach. They cannot grieve what keeps moving. Attach benefits to the calendar like rain to the dry season. Drip feed gains that are small, true, and cumulative. Clearer scope, better tools, fewer meetings, faster decision cycles, training stipends, cleaner dashboards, debt retirement, a backlog burn down you can watch shrink. Don't promise a distant, spectacular reward that depends on 5 variables you don't control. Promise and deliver. Friction removal every 7 to 14 days. Relief metabolizes resentment. Narrate the protected value every time you reference the cut. We are consolidating vendors to protect cash runway. We are raising the quality bar to protect user trust. We are centralizing approvals to protect safety. The human mind forgives pain when it can connect it to a named good. The villain in your story should be waste, drift, or risk, not the people who are affected. Use buffers and amnesties. Grandfather prior decisions when you can, establish sunset dates for legacy privileges, and offer one-time opt-ins to the new order with clear incentives. You're inviting people to step over a line voluntarily, not dragging them across it. An amnesty with a strict end date converts quiet resistance into measured compliance with far less force. Calibrate the pain budget. Any group has a finite appetite for disruption in a quarter. Spend it quickly in one cluster and then declare a moratorium. Nothing destroys trust faster than discovering there is a second, third, or fourth wave that you forgot to mention. If you must exceed the budget because of a true shock, say so plainly and reference the rule being defended. Then overcompensate with support and transparency. Avoid public spectacle. Discipline in front of the crowd humiliates and breeds revenge. The crowd should see two things: the standard reasserted and the future built. They do not need the details of someone's failure. When you must make a public example, choose a case where the rule is clear and the evidence is unambiguous. Describe the rule and the evidence, and stop there. You are protecting the norm, not feeding an audience. If you err, and you will, repair in the same window you cut. Admit the specific mistake. We overscoped, we misread a dependency, we punished a grey area as if it were black and white. Reverse what you can, compensate where appropriate, and restate the standard. A prompt, bounded correction increases credibility. A stubborn defense of an obvious miscalculation corrodes it. Give managers exact scripts. Most cruelty that turns into hatred does so in the mouths of unprepared messengers. Provide language. Here's the decision, here's why, here's what this means for you, here are resources, here is the date we'll check in. For questions they can't answer, forbid improvisation and offer a rapid response channel for authoritative replies. Managers should carry clarity, not speculation. Sequence the cycle deliberately. Day 0, private briefings with lieutenants, embargoed FAQs. Day 1 morning, execute the hard moves. Day 1 afternoon, address the full group with facts and timelines. Day 3 to 5, one-on-ones for those closest to the blast radius. Publish the first visible benefit. Schedule cleanup, tool license expansions, decision rights clarified. Week 2, a small, real win tied to the new order. Metric improvement, defect rate drop, cycle time shrink. Week 4, a retrospective on what improved and where friction remains, with 2 more benefits queued. Day 45 to 60, demonstrate the larger gain, customer renewal, cash runway extension, safety record, velocity. The timeline is the antidote to cynicism. Watch the early indicators that you cut wrong. Rumor velocity, hiring pipeline stall, resignation clustering among high performers, sarcasm density in public channels, a spike in meetings with no decisions. If they flare, increase surface area, more office hours, more Q&A, more dashboards, without weakening the decision. People want proof you are listening, not proof you are wavering. Use surgical cruelty with high performers who violate core norms. Top talent often expects exemptions. Grant them on preference, never on principle. When a star crosses a red line, safety, ethics, trust, act faster, not slower. The message is that excellence does not buy impunity. It buys worthy problems and bigger canvases. Quietly, offer them a path back that is measurable and time-bound. Publicly, talk only about the standard. In negotiation outside your walls, vendors, partners, adversaries apply the same logic. Deliver concessions in a slow drip tied to verifiable compliance. Deliver punishments in one motion. If you must raise prices, raise them once with a clear rationale and bundle real improvements. If you must walk away, walk all the way and reallocate attention immediately. Half exits invite pleading and poison. Document the decision in a decision memo anyone can reread. 1 page, the problem, the standard invoked, options considered with costs, the decision, the implementation plan, the support plan, and the dates for review. This memo becomes your receipt when critics claim the action was arbitrary. It also disciplines you to think before you swing. Design rituals that bind the new order. Rename the backlog to reflect the focus. Create a weekly debt-retired ticker. Assign rotating guardians of the standard who present evidence of drift and wins. Small ceremonies anchor big changes in muscle memory. Do not let the harsh act define you. The moment after a cut is when leaders get addicted to the feeling of decisiveness. Resist. Your goal is to make the system so clean that harshness becomes rarer, not easier. Return to normal cadence quickly, predictable check-ins, distributed decisions, visible progress. Let people see that the knife lives in a drawer, not on the table. Pair every removal with a construction. Kill a feature, but ship a performance improvement. Cut meetings, but publish clear decision rights. Reduce headcount, but invest in automation and training that make the remaining team's work saner. People accept subtraction when they experience addition that matters. Refuse euphemism. Euphemism insults intelligence and compounds pain through confusion. If there is a layoff, call it a layoff. If a project is dead, say it's dead. If a privilege is revoked, say it's revoked. Clarity hurts once. Spin hurts repeatedly. Guard the narrative frontier where outsiders will retell your story. Provide partners, customers, and candidates with the one-paragraph truth. Context, action, value protected, and what's improved since. If you leave the narrative blank, they will fill it with whatever makes the best gossip. Anchor your own psychology. Leaders who delay necessary pain usually do so out of self-protection, fear of anger, of being disliked, of being wrong. Make a private rule. When the data passes the threshold and the criteria are met, you act within a fixed window. Your feelings can follow later. Courage is procedural when it cannot be emotional. Most of all, remember the moral geometry. Concentrated pain, distributed gain. You take the blame for the shock. You share the credit for the improvements. You close the wound quickly. You feed the organism steadily. Done well, people will not call you kind, but they will call you serious, and they will stay to build under a sky that no longer threatens rain every afternoon. Power that survives combines obvious strength with quiet intelligence. The first establishes borders. The second makes those borders porous to opportunity and impermeable to threat. A lion without a fox invites traps. A fox without a lion invites predators. The art is sequencing. Signal strength early enough to deter testing. Apply cunning long enough to avoid unnecessary battles. And reserve unmistakable force for those moments when a clean demonstration of cost ends a saga in a day. Start with posture. Your baseline should read as capable and calm, crisp commitments, clean follow-through, and an economy of words. This is the lion's silhouette, visible competence that makes random challenges feel expensive, but show just enough constraint that observers can imagine you know more than you say. This is the fox's shadow, ambiguity that makes probing seem risky because the terrain might shift under the attacker's feet. The combination turns your presence into a deterrent. Trouble sees both the stone wall and the unmarked holes in the ground. Define your red lines in public, your tactics in private. Red lines are for the lion: safety, honesty, fiscal solvency, execution standards. They must be few, legible, and enforced without drama. Tactics are for the fox: how you collect information, which sequence of steps you'll test, which alliances you'll engage, which concessions you'll trade. Red lines prevent your cunning from looking like drift. Tactics prevent your strength from becoming wasteful friction. Build a repertoire of credible signals that say, enough, without burning the field. Costly signals work best. An on-time launch after you killed a beloved feature for reliability. A public renegotiation that saves cash but preserves dignity. A well-documented reversal when the facts changed. Each is a short fable others will retell. This person will cut, this person will pay, this person will turn on a dime with receipts. Stories do your roaring for you while you conserve energy. Treat information as terrain. The fox doesn't hoard facts. It shapes how facts flow. Think in layers. At the core, maintain a tight, boring circle that sees the full map, constraints, risks, real metrics. Around it, create working groups that see enough to move quickly, but not so much that they must perform for an imagined audience. At the edge, communicate with precision, not volume, dates, thresholds, and proofs. This is not secrecy for its own sake. It is preventing enemies, internal or external, from triangulating your intent while keeping allies coordinated. When entering a negotiation, carry two plans, one visible, one modular. The visible plan is the lion's, clear demands, non-negotiables, and a timeline that suggests you can walk. The modular plan is the fox's, interchangeable concessions, a ladder of value you can trade in different orders, and a set of small asks you can present as late additions when momentum favors you. Begin with anchoring statements that sound like duty. We must protect X. Rather than desire, we want Y. Then use silence as a tool. Silence is the fox's pause that invites over-explanation. It surfaces what the other side fears to lose. Practice calibrated displays. Most conflicts end before they properly begin when the stronger party shows a measured, unmistakable edge. A legal letter grounded in precedent you're actually willing to proceed with. A sandbox test that demonstrates you can replace a vendor. A staged pilot that proves you can ship without a resistant team. The display is precise, enough to be believed, not enough to escalate. You are communicating capacity, not appetite. Exploit timing like a fox to amplify the lion's moves. A decisive action delivered when opponents are overextended achieves twice the effect at half the cost. Watch for calendar choke points. Quarter end when rivals must dress numbers. Renewal cycles when switching costs bite. Publicity windows when reputations matter. Schedule your pressure for their fatigue and your relief for your people's recovery. Strength without timing becomes grinding. Cunning turns it into leverage. Use decoy surfaces to invite harmless pressure and study intent. Not every fortress needs to be equally thick. Publish a harmless secondary metric and let critics fixate on it while your primary engine quietly accelerates. Float a reversible proposal and record who mobilizes against it and why. The fox sets up puzzles that reveal the players. The lion uses the map when it's time to make real moves. Be careful. Decoys must be ethically clean and operationally reversible. You're reading the room, not entrapping colleagues. Keep optionalities alive. Strength commits, cunning keeps exits. Build at least 2 viable paths to your next milestone. 2 suppliers, 2 distribution channels, 2 candidates for a key role. Signal none of this flamboyantly, simply be able to pivot without ceremony. Optionality turns a threat into a price. When others sense you are never cornered, they bargain. When they believe you are trapped, they test. Develop a habit of soft probes before hard pushes. Ask for a small, specific concession with a short fuse and a measurable outcome. If granted, step. If refused, you've learned the real resistance without committing your full weight. In product, this might be a limited pilot with strict success criteria. In personnel, a time-boxed improvement plan with 2 unambiguous metrics. In partnerships, a month-long trial priced to scale. Probes convert speculation into data, and data gives the lion permission to move. Manage your myths carefully. Every organization tells itself stories about you. Feed the ones that serve stability. They're fair but fast. They see around corners. They hate surprises. They never bluff about deadlines. These myths become heuristics others use to predict you. Prediction lowers paranoia. Lowered paranoia reduces sabotage. The fox writes the script. The lion enjoys the quiet set. Master the double register in meetings. Out loud, you speak to the table, calm, focused on the shared objective, inviting clear trade-offs. Through your questions, you speak to the subtext, exposing unpriced risks, surfacing hidden constraints, and identifying where authority actually sits. Ask, who owns the downside, and watch the room rearrange. Ask, what would break if we pulled this lever twice as hard, and find the brittle parts before a rival does. Red team your own plans before your enemies do. Invite a small group to attack your idea as if they hated it. Offer a bounty for flaws found. The lion loves decisive action. The fox insists on testing the floorboards. Make it normal to say, pause. What would a smart opponent do against this? That habit saves you from performing strength on rotten wood. Beware performative cunning. Overly elaborate maneuvers read as manipulation and breed distrust. The best cunning is often simplicity disguised as inevitability, changing an incentive that makes the old behavior unprofitable, altering the default so the desired choice requires less energy, publishing a scoreboard that makes sloppiness visible and therefore embarrassing. You didn't outsmart anyone. You reshaped the landscape so that smarter behavior became easier. Cultivate quiet power brokers, people who connect factions and translate dialects. The lion speaks in decrees. The fox listens to dialects, engineering risk versus sales urgency, legal exposure versus product velocity, finance runway versus brand equity. A single trusted translator in each domain reduces distortion and rumor, which means you spend less strength clarifying and more strength deciding. Use structured ambiguity when you must deter without committing. You can be clear about standards and fuzzy about thresholds. We review contracts that exceed risk category B without publishing the exact dollar line. We escalate on security anomalies without listing the precise pattern you'll trip on. The aim is to make adversarial planning expensive while keeping honest actors documented. Ambiguity should never cover incompetence. It should cover your freedom of motion. Practice selective disclosure to build leverage. Offer data that proves your seriousness, unit economics, defect trends, retention cohorts, but omit strategic intent until timing favors you. Drop enough context that others align with your direction of travel. Hold back the exact coordinates until the path is cleared. This isn't secrecy, it's sequencing. Cunning is often about order. What comes first, what comes later, and who learns what when. Train your team in threat triage. Not every bark deserves a roar. Classify challenges by cost of engagement and potential contagion. Ignore gnats, swat wasps, cage wolves. Set default responses, silence and logs for low-grade noise, templated fact-rich replies for mid-tier disputes, leader-level action for existential risk. The lion preserves energy for wolves. The fox prevents gnats from becoming wasps by not feeding them attention. Keep clean hands while you maneuver. The fox operates within rules that would withstand audit. The lion enforces rules that would withstand scrutiny. No back channel that would embarrass you if printed. No data massaging. No false flags. Cunning is not cheating. It is composition, arranging the same notes into more effective music. Leverage scarcity and sequence in coalition building. Bring in allies in the order that maximizes their rivalry. If A and B both want exclusivity, give neither, but let each see the other's alignment in a way that motivates performance. Offer early movers higher upside with clearer obligations. Latecomers get less upside and more constraints. The lion demands commitments. The fox structures envy so performance remains high without constant supervision. Use calm escalation. When you must move from request to requirement, change your nouns, not your decibels. We need becomes we require. Soon becomes a date. Flag becomes blocker. A quiet shift in vocabulary communicates the presence of the lion without the theatrics of a roar. People who respond only to roaring are liabilities. Your language should train better behavior. Design fail-safes and tripwires. Fail-safes limit blast radius when a plan fails. Feature flags, reversible migrations, limited blast deployments. Tripwires alert you early when a rival or risk crosses a boundary. Kicked-off alerts on cost spikes. Anomaly detection on data exfiltration, contractual clauses that force renegotiation when volumes shift. The fox notices first, the lion arrives prepared. Hold reserve power. Always keep one credible action in your pocket that you have not signaled and can execute quickly. An unannounced distribution channel, a pre-cleared procurement swap, a standby candidate for a fragile role, a line B you can light up if line A fails. Reserve power changes your inner psychology. You negotiate from ease, not fear, and that composure reads as strength even when you say nothing. Develop the two-voice memo habit. For every major move, write 2 paragraphs. 1, the other side will read, principles, mutual gains, and 1 for yourself, levers, walkaway point, sequence of asks. The public paragraph keeps the conversation civil, the private paragraph keeps you from drifting. The fox plans, the lion executes. Normalize small, decisive wins that compound into myth. Ship a constraint that removes 20% of indecision. Kill a ritual that returns an hour a week to everyone. Close a lingering dispute with a single, measured policy. The more people watch you turn friction into flow, the less often you will need to bare your teeth. Cunning reduces the need for strength by making the machine run on rails. When you must strike, strike to restore order, not to entertain the crowd. Choose a case that is clear on facts and central to your standard. Act in one motion: decision, communication, mitigation, and return to cadence. Refuse the victory lap. The fox knows that gloating seeds coalitions. The lion knows that restraint breeds respect. Learn opponent mapping. Categorize challengers by motive. Opportunists, ideologues, status seekers, survivalists. Opportunists respond to price, ideologues to principle and isolation, status seekers to audience removal, survivalists to safety and alternatives. Do not waste the lion on ideologues when isolation will empty their theatre. Do not waste the fox on survivalists when safety will secure them. Matching tool to motive lowers cost. Guard your attention capital. The lion tires when everything is a battle. Set, ignore, delegate, and engage lists weekly. Ignore what cannot hurt you. Delegate what cannot define you. Engage what can reshape you. The fox's first move is often subtraction, less noise, fewer debates, shorter loops. Your people will feel the oxygen return when you stop wrestling shadows. Keep your own ego on a leash. Strength is intoxicating. Cunning can turn cynical. Establish rituals that clean your lens, a monthly review of errors you made and what you learned, a standing invitation for a trusted critic to tell you where you overreached, a personal rule to revisit decisions after new data without shame. The lion that can apologize precisely becomes terrifying. The fox that can admit a misread becomes trustworthy. Both compound power. Finally, remember the order of operations. Deter with presence, probe with cunning, decide with strength, and disappear back into cadence. You want your force to feel inevitable when it arrives, and unnecessary most of the time, because people have learned the contour of your will. The lion makes rebellion look costly. The fox makes obedience feel smart. Over time, others will adjust their moves to yours, and that is the quiet endgame of power. Not perpetual conflict, but a landscape tilted to your standards where most battles cancel themselves before they ever reach your door.